Hello, out there, you wonderful people. This is Andre, the Game Idea Guy. Thank you once again for lending me your time and your ear, listening into another video from me. And I'm going to be talking a little bit more about my character, Heat, and what he would have done in his story as far as what it would have been in the Mega Man X series. Now, if I could have actually put him in the series, Heat would have been created around the time of the events of Mega Man X3 as one of the prototype battle bodies for Sigma. So it means he is not complete. Like he's an incomplete character, unfortunately. But it fits in with the story. Like he's, like I said, being a prototype character. Um, Around the time that Dr. Doppler came to his senses, whether it was when he sacrificed, whether or not you go with the explanation that he sacrificed himself or that he gave Zero the antivirus. Either way, like he had been working, like as far as I conceived it, he's been working on an antivirus for the Maverick disease as far as Reploids are concerned. And so he had been working on an antivirus and before he'd been corrupted by Sigma, and was actually developing a new type of Reploid that would be able to house the antivirus. But in experimenting with Sigma's data, which is how he got corrupted, which would make sense, while he was working on the antivirus, which is what allowed Sigma to take him over, and to manipulate him into building a new body for him. So, with the little bit of data the data that they had on Zero that they could use, and what little they knew about X, that's basically how Heat was developed before all the other Reploid Maverick data was collected and stuff. So a lot of that wasn't included in Heat. Like some of it was, not all of it. Like in Doppler didn't get to finish the body before Sigma needed to be able to take on X and Zero, which is why Sigma is in the, like as far as my story conception goes, this is why Sigma has the other two bodies that he was using. Those were made in case he could, in case the Heat body wasn't finished in time. When Doppler came to his senses, he'd uploaded part of the antivirus into the Reploid body, which was Heat, and added in a personality module that he'd created, so that the Reploid could, you know, live actually. But not having time to really activate him and test his systems, he had stored him away in a capsule in a safe location that was well protected inside of his lab. So even though X and Zero did not know of Heat's existence, he had already been created. He was just basically left in slumber, buried under the lab once it collapsed after Sigma was taken down. Now, when I made this story, I treated it as if Doppler sacrificed himself to take out Sigma. So he used a weaker version of the antivirus than what is in Heat, when he sacrificed himself to try to kill Sigma. So skip forward quite a bit of time, following the events of Mega Man X7, where Axel was introduced, and X8, where Lumine was introduced, and Command Mission. Like, yes, all of this stuff has had to have happened. Actually, when you pay attention to Command Mission, it kind of hints toward some things that happened in Mega Man X8, even though X8 came out after Command Mission actually came out. Like with the new type Reploids that are able to transform at will and stuff, and Axel being a prototype of the new type of Reploids. and it being discovered that Sigma's data is in them, which is what causes them to be able to choose to go Maverick or not. And it's not something, not a programming fault. It's something that they can actively choose, which is actually kind of interesting. I think the difference between Axel being the prototype of the new generation Reploids and the new generation Reploids was that he didn't have the Sigma data. So, and that also meant that he was incomplete. He could transform into other Reploids that were his size, but he couldn't transform to different ones that were bigger or smaller than him before Mega Man X8 happened. And during one of the endings, actually I think it's in everybody's ending, before Lumine is completely destroyed, he strikes Axel in the crystal on his head, damaging him and knocking him out. And I believe during Axel's ending, after he's been repaired and he's back on duty, you can see like the slight purple glow in his crystal, which wasn't there before. And having Mega Man X Command Mission follow that, Axel was finally able to fully transform into different size Reploids, as if he was a completed model of as if he was a completed new type Reploid and he wasn't a prototype model. There's reason to this. Just somebody's probably already thinking about it, but there's reason to this. So after the events of Mega Man X Command Mission go down, everything happens there. There's a distress call back at Noah Park, which is where the intro stage in Mega Man X8. Going back there, where the original Jacob project was being worked on. Well, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, because I was about to make a really drastic mistake there. X-Zero and Axel were informed of what they believed to be the last remnant of Sigma floating around, and it was him trying to gather stuff up from different places different bases he'd had over the course of the Mega Man X series. And he stopped in the Doppler's labs, going through a lot of his what was left of his files and things, and discovered the existence of heat. Like it wasn't fully laid out. Like there was tons of information missing because of the fact that all the computers and things were destroyed and not able to properly display everything. But Sigma learned of Heat's existence, found him, and actually opened his capsule and woke him up. Now, before Heat's brain could actually fully turn on, his mind wasn't fully functional. Like, it was like all of his systems were still booting up. So Sigma woke him up while basically searching and rummaging for things that he could use to rebuild himself again. But X-Zero and Axel were kind of hot on his trail. They found him, and he turned heat on them. Heat still waking up technically. Say his body was awakened, but his mind wasn't fully active. Which I think I've already said anyway. So Heat jumps in and attacks Zero. And Zero kind of noticed it right from the start that Heat wasn't all there. Like, he just, once he looked at his face, he could kind of see that the lights weren't all on. So he was taking it easy on him while he was fighting him. And X and Axel were just kind of spectating from behind, not actually knowing what was going on. They see this new Reploid jump out of nowhere, and he's going toe to toe with Zero and looks kind of similar to him. But once Zero kind of looked back at them, they kind of understood what was going on, and they went on to attack Sigma. And Sigma got his hands on Axel and was about to absorb him during this confrontation. But before that could fully happen, Heat had fully woken up and recognized who Zero was, and that it then turned and saw X. He didn't really see didn't know who Axel was, because Axel wasn't around at the time of his creation. But the antivirus mode within him switched on when he saw Sigma, and he jumped in and like basically stabbed Sigma in his forehead with his beam saber and erases him, like totally erases him inside and out. And Axel gets dropped because Sigma's body falls empty and lifeless. So the Maverick Hunters obviously take Heat back to their base. They want to do some scans on him, investigate how he came into being. And once they hooked him up to some scanners and things, they found a message left in his subconscious from Doppler to basically say that Heat was a prototype battle body for Sigma. Part of the Sigma virus was used in creating the antivirus that Doppler had been developing, and he became corrupted by the Sigma side of the virus. But the version of it that he'd given Heat was the most potent version of it that he'd ever created. And he wanted Heat to be in the care of the Maverick Hunters for them to basically take over teaching and training him, so that they could basically put an end to all Mavericks. So X is kind of untrusting of this because of the fact that there is part of Sigma inside of Heat, in a sense. Well, he wanted him to be shut back down and to basically be decommissioned. And Zero didn't like the idea. So Zero and Axel kind of protested the idea, and Zero decided that he would take Heat under his wing and train him up and make him a part of his own unit, part of the special Zero unit. Like, that's something that they don't talk about anymore in the damn X series, is the fact that X and Zero are commanders of different units. And I would assume that Axel is probably a part of X's unit and not Zero's. So this is where I was thinking of it. Anyway, X storms off. Zero takes Heat to go train him and show him how to utilize his abilities. And Axel's with, which one is it? Think her name's Pallet. Pallet is the young navigator, the one from X8. Like, she seems to have like a thing for Axel. And Lair, the other navigator, like, they're all there, like Lair, Pallet, and Alia. But Pallet finds a distress call coming from Noah Park, and informs Alia. Alia puts out a call to X, but X isn't responding. Basically, he's just like pissed off, so he's trying, like, he went to go calm himself down. He was pissed off. But then he also finds Zero walking into a training room and sees Heat jump out of nowhere and attack him, not realizing that this was part of Zero's plan. So X, assuming the worst, runs into the training room and draws his buster on Heat, who in turn draws his buster on X. He was like staring at him with like I'm basically it boiled down to he was just preparing to defend himself in case he needed to after hearing about how X felt about him. And I skipped a huge period of time. I skipped a huge period of time. But it's okay. Like the way this story was developing doesn't really make a difference. Because I originally conceived it so that Heat and Axel spent some time together hanging out, and Heat went over like different data files and stuff. But that was supposed to be before X decided it. Before all the information was found out, and X decided that Heat should be decommissioned and put basically on the back burner. Yeah, that was supposed to be. I don't know how I skipped all that. But yeah, Heat went over a lot of files, like a lot of stuff that, a lot of the fights and things, a lot of situations that X and Zero went into, and eventually, excuse me, gosh, I had to belch, and eventually Axel as well. So they learned about the Jacob Project and the situation with Red Alert and all that stuff, and as well as the incident in Giga City, which is Mega Man X Command Mission. They also seen in the file about how Axel was struck in the head and was out of commission for a little while before Lumine was taken out, and how they were like Axel had constantly been at that point been checked and over again, and diagnostics had been run on him to make sure that there were no lingering problems, since his abilities seem to have been perfected after that happened. And as far as anyone could tell, nothing was wrong with Axel. Outside of every now and again, he would have blackouts, where gaps of time would go missing. Like, but but other than that, no lingering issues. And it wasn't like during missions that it happened. It's usually in downtime off of missions, where he'd have like these blackouts where he wouldn't remember fully how many things went down. Now we go back to the training room where the standoff of X and Heat, and Zero tries to explain to X that he was training Heat, like teaching him how to fight and make sure that he'd be able to handle himself in a mission situation. X finally stands down. Axel comes running to find him after Alia's call out to X didn't work, and they couldn't reach Heat and Zero because they had basically switched off communication while they were training. So Axel had to be the one to run down and get everybody. They head off to Noah Park. Heat going with the group despite X protesting it and not wanting him to be there, seeing that he could be a liability. Yeah, X is very worried about the whole Sigma thing. Like this was kind of hinted at during I think it was either Command Mission or X8. I can't remember, but it was kind of hinted that X is kind of weary of anything that involves Sigma, like extremely weary of it, and like very cautious. So they get down to Noah Park, and Heat is looking around because this is like his first actual time out and seeing nature growing. Like, and Axel and Zero have seen this place before, so for them it's not like all that spectacular, but he's kind of like awestruck at the moment because he's not seen nature, like, and being able to see it for the first time with his own eyes. You can kind of imagine threw him for a little bit of a loop. But during the investigation, they end up back at the facility where Vile first shows up at the end of X8 when he kidnapped Lumine, which was basically at the bottom of the orbital elevator for the Jacob Project. And guess what? A very broken up, screwed up vial appears out of a pile of basically garbage and grabs Axel. So he had pulled basically immediately once he saw what happened, pulled his buster and was about to fire on Vile and like try to take his head off before anything happened to Axel. But X made him stop and caused him to hesitate. And then Vile touched the crystal on top of Axel's head before dropping him, and then finally Heat just took him out with a blast. That basically knocked the failing body of Vile to pieces again. But that tap on the crystal was to awaken the remnants of Lumine that were basically left in Axel since X8, like to fully wake him up. And if anybody's paid attention to, like anybody who's played Mega Man X8, like you put in the cheat code for the ultimate version of Axel, he actually has the same color scheme as Lumine. I'm like, and I thought that was odd, like, but that's a really interesting detail and Easter egg to kind of leave in the game and as a hint towards Axel possibly being corrupted. Like, at least to me, it's interesting that they did that. Like, and I use that because this is like once that happens, Axel falls to the floor and his colors start to change to that of Lumine. His hair becomes purple, his crystal. I think his crystal also changed. I think his crystal turns red. I don't remember. I don't remember. It's been a while since I looked at that. But his color scheme adapts to that of Lumine. His eyes and everything, his eyes become purple. His hair color changes. And essentially, Lumine awakens in Axel's body and fully takes it over. And then he basically explains his plans to restart the Jacob Project and restart the Jacob Project and kind of set things in motion to share his data throughout the world with all Reploids to basically draw them under his own command. And Heat, seeing that Axel's body is taken over, he kind of hesitates on taking the shot, but ends up firing at Lumine only for it to be bounced back at him and hit him square in his chest and knock him down. And Lumine basically vacates after that. So so basically the main story after that, like, I mean, I'm going to wrap this up because I've been on it for a while. Obviously, Heat, not Heat. Obviously, Lumine had some Reploids on call, like he had a group ready to kind of help him get his plan started, and they're all working on different tiers of the orbital elevator. Again, basically setting up satellites so that they can broadcast the signal from Lumine's. Basically it's like to send Lumine's signal to all the other Reploids, and they were setting up satellites and things around the orbital elevator that they could use for that purpose, that they would cover the whole of the planet with his signal that would corrupt all the rest of the Reploids. So back at Hunter Base, everybody's separated. I'm not separated. Everybody gets back to the base. Cygnus shows up, lays out the plan for him, sends everybody. Not Axel, because Axel's gone. Sends X, Heat, and Zero out on different missions to take care of things. And during Heat wraps up his mission fairly quickly. Like, his opponent wasn't all that tough. But he gets back. like they all kind of wrap up their missions pretty fast, but Zero is the first to finish his mission, and he's basically back at Hunter Base, and then Lumine shows up, and Zero confronts him. He tries to take him out, gets heavily damaged. Heat shows back up after that, and attacks Lumine, gets basically knocked aside. And X finally shows up, and then he decides to roll out again. But X, seeing how vehemently Heat tried to defend Zero, starts to come around to the idea that he may not be all bad, but he may not be corrupted by Sigma, which during the story he never actually gets corrupted by Sigma. The threat of it is always there because part of Sigma is in him, but he doesn't actually get corrupted by him. Long story short, they fight a bunch of Reploids, beat them, take them out, make their way up the orbital elevator to where the satellites are being completed, and start basically dismantling them piece by piece, and take on Lumine for the final battle in Axel's body again. During the fight, where they've basically fought Lumine down to a standstill, and he's gearing up to try to wipe out the group of them, he fully powers himself up and uses an antivirus, jumps in, attacking Lumine and sacrificing himself, like he burned himself out completely during this attack. And once he wipes Lumine out of Axel's system, he falls to the ground. Mind you, he is extremely heavily damaged when he does this. He basically jumps into the big attack that Lumine was setting up. So he was fucked up. He was horribly fucked up when he took this shot, but he knew what it. He knew he was the one capable of taking him out, and the only way it could be done. And once he got up close and personal and having most of his body destroyed and got that final blow in, yeah, Axel was damaged in the process, but he survives it. Because I don't want to kill off a main cast character and shit in my own story. But yeah, Axel survives it, but was needing to be repaired and everything. But he is basically gone, and X and Zero watch the light fade out of him before he finally just shuts down. And it's not like how Zero can keep coming back because his the chip that holds his mind is completely fried. He's gone. He is dead in the Mega Man X world. There's nothing left to the character at that point. He was basically a one-time character, shows up for this one game, and that's it. This one story, that's it. Once that happens, he's done. At least as far as Mega Man X goes. I really wish I could have fleshed out all of the important details, but I think I gave most of the gist of everything. So you guys can tell me what you would have thought, if you would have liked this type of story in Mega Man X. I know I would, which is why I came up with it. I'm sorry for bouncing around in some parts. It's just I was thinking about things. It's shit, I forgot that. But that's it. Thank you guys very much for listening. Keep your eyes and ears up for more stuff from me. And until the next time, enjoy your games. Peace out.